Welcome back to another video looking at some power stations, and this is again another model from Bluetti. I've covered before in the past some of their products. The Apex 300 is now a new one from them, and this model here, pretty impressive with the stats and what it can do. So unlike the AC300, this has the battery built into it. And yes, it's using LFP cells, so it's those Life PO4 cells. Super high quality. In fact, they're automotive grade that they claim, Bluetti, that they're using in this. And they're good for over 6,000 cycles and around about 17 years, which is impressive. Now, power output maximum from just the single unit here is 3,840 watts. So it's very powerful. This can be able to power pretty much everything. It's going to be great for RV owners, homeowners, and running your domestic appliances. Pretty much 99% of those will be run on this. And it has a solar input maximum of 2,400 watts. Now, the capacity, this is 2,764 watt hours, just a fraction over that. And I have the B300K here, which is an expandable modular battery. So you can expand the capacity all the way up to 58 kilowatt hours, which is a lot. And power output, using other units in parallel, you can get over 11 kilowatts of power output. So that is pretty amazing there. And I'll show you what the Apex 300 is all about in this video. And by the way, this video is sponsored by Bluetti. The Apex 300 and the B300K were really well packaged up, double boxed, shrink wrapped, and strapped to a small pallet. And what's included with the Apex 300, you'll find a warranty card, a user manual, and they give us a DC cable here to charge it using a cigarette lighter or the car accessory socket to XT60 for DC charging. An AC cable for charging it. Also, this little screws included, and that is for a cable, grounding cable, that you might wish to screw on to the power station. Now, you may have seen my video on the AC300 from Bluetti also. This is a little different here because it doesn't have the DC side of things. You have to buy the hub, which is separate, and I'll show you that shortly. But here you can see that we do have the 4 AC sockets. Output here is 230 volts and a maximum of 3.84 kilowatts is the output, which is impressive. So that is more than the AC300. And I have the EU style plugs here. So the max 16 amps, those there, and our screen, I'll show you that shortly just a little bit closer, but I've already got it powered on. You just tap there and the screen will come back on. So we have our charging mode switch right here. You can put it to silent, auto, or turbo. Turbo being the fastest, and it will fully charge in 70 minutes, but it gets to 80% in just 50, which is very good considering that capacity of the 2,764.8 watt hours. The AC on and off button here, which you can control remotely with the application. We've got our eco mode here and the magic button switch. It's actually a switch, not a button, but you can configure that, customize it with the application. Now, the build quality is excellent. It's an ABS style plastic. It's very durable and hard, and we've got these really solid handles, which it does need. There's no flexor given these handles either. You wouldn't want that because it does weigh 36, almost about 37 kilos. So it is very heavy, and you can get an optional trolley design for it, which I would highly recommend getting if you're going to be moving it around a lot. So each of the sides, we have 2 cooling fans with a dust filter, which is removable. So just one screw here, you can pull that off and then just clean that out, which is really good to have for longevity of the unit, because the enemy of electronics, especially like this, would be dust that gets caked up inside there. You don't want that. Circuit protection right here, so this will pop out. You pop that back in. We have a screw point here for grounding the unit and AC input for charging. And like I said, it just charges fully in just 70 minutes, which is really good. And then you have an AC in and out port right here, and that's 230 volts, 50 amps maximum for that port. And on the right, we have our PV input right here. So solar input, and that's up to 2,400 watts maximum just with this unit, but you can get an optional extra, which is the Solar X4K. And that means you can go from 4 kilowatts up to 19 kilowatts of solar input if you're using that optional system. And then a battery expansion port there on this side. This is what you also plug in the DC hub to. So unfortunately, none of these DC ports are on the Apex 300 itself. They decided to do this separately. I don't know their reasoning behind this. I guess for space saving. But you can see with this hub here that we have some Type-C ports. They've got little dust covers over them. So the two Type-C ports, they support 100 watts each. And then we have USB-A, a total of 15 watts right there, the on and off switch for it. And then your cigarette lighter ports there, your car accessory port for a DC output, which is very good. It's also fan cooled. Now this can handle in total 700 watts, the Hub1. On the top of it, there is an Anderson port with that SB50 connector. So 12 volts, 50 amps, or if you're going to be using 24 volts, half the amperage, so that's then 25 amps. So the DC hub, called the Hub1, it plugs into a battery expansion port. So that means we can't use expanded batteries when you're using that hub. And then our expandable batteries, we have seen these before. So this is our B300K, and it's using the same LiFePO4 battery cell. So LFP cells, the same ones, good for those 6,000 cycles and about 17 years. They've worked out that they'll be still useful. So we do have a Type A port on this, 12 watts, a status indicator that is just these 5 LEDs. Each one represents 20%, of course, and then a power on and off button. These expandable battery banks do come with 2 expansion ports on them. So if you happen to be using one of these with the Apex 300, then you can use the DC hub and have the additional battery. Same quality plastics have been used just like the Apex 300, very sturdy, solid handles, because this is also heavy, but not quite as heavy as the Apex 300. This is approximately 29.5 kilos, whereas the Apex 300 is about 36, 37 kilos. Along the back of both of the units here, so the Apex 300 and the expandable B300K, we do have these mounting points. The Hub1 is secured into place with this little clip, so you just clip that onto the handle. You can put it in various other locations, and you can even remove this, and they do sell an optional wall mount for this. So if you had your battery sitting in a permanent location, then you could screw this into place on a wall somewhere. So when you plug in the expandable batteries here, note that the cables, they lock into place. So they're very safe, they're secure, that it does have a very good, nice gauge cable to it. So it's very thick there, really high quality, these cables that plug in and lock into place. The screen is bright and it's very clear and easy to read. So on the right-hand side, we have the wattages for input and output for AC. Left is our DC. In the middle there, you can see a very nice, clear, easy to read remaining percentage of the battery. If you've got the modular batteries plugged in, it's calculating all of them. So right now at my current discharge rate, it's telling me I have 3.4 days left of runtime. If I was to plug something demanding in, then that would be then in hours. It calculates it on the fly, and it will also give you your charge rates too. If I happen to be charging, it'll tell me how long I have left to charge it to 100%. So for my solar test, I've gone up to my balcony, which has been featured in a lot of my videos over the last 12 years or so. I take a lot of photos here because of the fantastic view that I do have. It is really wonderful and I never get bored of it. But let's see what it can do. I've got a solar panel up here. So the sun's in a good position. It's located right overhead, almost in the best position here for where I have my solar panel. So the panel has full sunlight on it, and I should be able to get a decent bit of charge here. Now the cable I've used to connect up to this is an optional cable. It is a PV to the XT60 connector, and here I have the Apex 300. Now you don't want to have it in the sun, of course. I'm only doing it just for this test, which is going to be about 3 minutes long, that it will be sitting in the sun here, because otherwise it'll overheat, it'll trigger the BMS and switch itself off for safety. So with this panel, which does peak at 400 watts, we are currently doing 336 watts. That's not bad at all for this panel. I mean, the peak I have seen is around about 370. After all, it's just a 400 watt panel. So that is working well there, solar charging, and it does tell me it's going to take about 9 hours to top the battery off completely to 100%. Of course, the more panels you add, then the faster this is going to be, and up to 2,400 watts of solar input for solar charging. Now we know with the output that it does have a 3.84 kilowatt hours, that the Apex 300 can charge an EV, and this would be great in an emergency situation. Imagine I completely ran out of battery, but the nearest charging station is just 15 kilometers away or 10 kilometers. Well, I can use it then to top up this car and get to that station. So let's test out the Apex 300, charging an EV. So before I start, let's have a look at what the battery percentage is at the moment and what our guessometer is telling me. So the guessometer is saying that we've got 350 kilometer range and I've got 70% battery exactly. In fact, it just dropped off from 71 to 70%. So that is good for this test. And we can see that I've got both of the batteries to 100% and it is connected up, which is the B300K, the expansion battery there. So what I'm going to do now is turn on AC. And I have set my charger to 3.5 kilowatts, so that is just under the 3.84 kilowatt hour limit output that we do have. And you can see now, we'll see the charging rate once the car starts to charge. It'll click over, and there we go. I've just heard the confirmation noise from the car, and we're charging at 3.5 kilowatts. So I'm gonna let this run right down to 0 when it turns off. All right, it's just hit 1% now, completely finished, and it handled that 3.5 kilowatt load continually for well over an hour, which is impressive. Okay, so back to the car. Let's have a look and see. Remember before it was 70% battery and it told me it had an estimated range of 350 kilometers. Now I'm 75% and the electric range is 372. So gained 22 kilometers and 5% battery. So that is definitely going to serve quite well in an emergency. Now there's 1,000 uses for a power station as powerful as this, but one of them that I do like to do myself is where I can't get an extension lead or I don't have a power point, is to bring a power station such as the Apex 300 to, say, the car, and then you can vacuum your car with your vacuum, because it's going to be a handle this. Absolutely no problem for it. And imagine if you're a tradesman, you're on a job site that still doesn't have power, then you can use all of your power tools with the Apex 300. So only really charging an EV really pushed it to the limit with the 3.5 kilowatts that I was pushing. But I'm going to take it indoors now. We'll do some further tests to test out the UPS function and just to overload it. So the battery management system too. It's got temperature sensors, overload protection. I want to trigger that and see how quickly that is going to work. And finally, fan noise. How loud does the Apex 300 get? So I have the DC side of things loaded up. I've got a power bank charging at 100 watts and this one's charging at 75. So not quite the 200 watts that both of the Type-Cs can do combined, and 500 with the AC charging at the moment. So I have a kettle here, hairdryer, and a iron. It's time to now overload things and check out how that battery management system works. So it'll have the overload prediction and it'll trigger that. So at the moment I'm 1800 watts because I have the iron on, but I'll turn on now the kettle, start to boil water. It's going over its limit, or almost. I think it's throttling a little bit now to 3600 watts. So that isn't enough to trigger it, although it should be over 4000. Now trying, okay, over 4,000, now 4,500. It's telling me it's in the surge mode at the moment. And there we go. It lasted for a few seconds and it has cut out there. And we get the overload error. So I've got to turn the AC off here. And then if I turn it back on, I'll just make sure that these things are off. It comes back on now. So that's as simple as that if you do accidentally overload it. Now to test both charging at a higher rate. So if I put it into the auto mode, that's normally about 1500 watts, which you can see it doing now, just over 1400. And if I go to turbo, this is normally 2300, 2400. And as I said, with the AC, it can charge to 80% in 50 minutes and fully charged in 70 minutes. But now I'll turn that iron on. I'll put that on now, and we'll see that on the AC output, this will start to come on. And I'll turn the hairdryer on. And naturally, the AC charging rate has dropped down a little now. I'll turn the kettle on. And it's telling me it's gone into the surge mode, the overboost. So it's handling both a charge load and a discharge load really well at the same time there, which is good. But let's have a listen to the fans. What does the fan sound like when it's working really hard? Now the UPS function, if you did need this, well, it has it. And I've used the desktop computer, I've tested it, it will not cut out. You don't even see the difference. So right now charging at almost 2200 watts, and I'll load up AC and we'll see if we can see if there's going to be any flicker with anything. So I turn the AC on again, that's the iron, and have the kettle here, and then pull out AC. So 1, 2, and 3. There we go, no charging now. And I don't notice any difference at all. Now, if you're using a PC, it's that quick, you don't even see any flickers or anything. So really good UPS, it's basically instantaneous. And our application, which is simply called Bluetti. So this works for your iOS devices, your iPads, your iPhones, Android, and here is the main menu. So devices you have from Bluetti will be listed in here. I have the AP300, should I say, Apex 300. And on first glance, it gives me all that key information, and I love this layout. So I can see that I'm currently charging, the direction of how it's going. If it was discharging, well, you'd see it in the DC information here. So battery percentage remaining, the time remaining right here, clearly displayed. This is good. And I'm currently solar charging at just under 200 watts. It is the evening, so the panel's not doing so well. Now I need to adjust the angle of it and pulling that 2.1 from the grid there, which, by the way, 2 is also solar because I have solar panels on my roof installed. And if you had any components installed, that'll be showing. You can remotely control the AC on and off. Energy saved, so I put in my current plan, my solar plan rates I have, and it's worked out that I've saved 9 cents, but I haven't been charging it for too long here. The solar generation and carbon reduction reduced there, what I've reduced and saved with carbon. And if you go into settings, that's where you get all of the more in-depth kind of things there. Password, and you can set the timeout for the screen, the charging mode, powerlifting, eco, child lock. You can set that magic button for whatever you want it to do there. This is where you get the firmware upgrades. So you can get a lot of this information just via Bluetooth, but if you want to get the firmware updates, you do need to have the Apex 300 connected up to your wireless router. It's connected up to the 2.4 gigahertz band there. And there are other things like your stream weather alerts that you can get it to then go into that emergency mode, backup power. And there are all different modes you're able to set in there. It's working mode. So backup, I can change that to be self-consumption, time of use, and a custom mode there for it. There's even guides in here too as well. So there's a lot in this. I haven't, of course, shown you everything, but I love how, at first glance, you get all this key information. And that's how I think apps for power stations should be. Okay, so what are we looking at for pricing? So I saw that on the Indiegogo that this was going for about $1,200 US, but that was a special price, and I believe it's going to be approximately about 1,500 or so, but I will give you the exact pricing in the description of this video, along with a link of where you can get it and any discount codes too as well there. So the capacity is really impressive. I think that this has, especially that wattage output, that's 3,840 watts. So you can power pretty much everything out there that you would need to. The UPS function, as I showed you, works really well. That cuts in pretty much straight away. You don't even detect it. You won't even notice it with the Tower PC either, that it cuts out. And of course, the expandable modular battery system. So you can take the capacity from the 2,764 watt hours, just slightly over that, right up to 58 kilowatt hours, which is a lot. Yes, I don't think most people will be doing that, but you have the possibility. Now, the downsides to this unit, unlike the AC300, it doesn't have the DC side of things built into it, but you can get this pretty beefy add-on that plugs into that battery expansion port, which is the Hub1. And this adds all the DC side of things. So if you need the Anderson port, the cigarette lighter, it's up to 700 watts maximum output and can handle 50 amps, which is very good there. And the fan noise, as I pointed out, it's not too bad, but yes, you do hear it when you put it on the turbo fastest charging option. By the way, charges really quickly, 50 minutes to 80%, fully charged in 70 minutes. That is also very good. So all up, it is a great unit here that Bluetti have, like their other products, but it is heavy. That is one of the big downsides. And the obvious one, the battery cells, they weigh a bit. LF battery cells are high quality and have put a lot into this, but it is around about 37 kilos, the Apex 300, and almost 30 kilos, the modular B300K batteries. So yeah, you don't need to go to the gym if you're going to be lifting these and moving them around a lot which is why I highly recommend you can get the optional dolly for this so you can cart that around a little bit easier. And most people that will be working with these in a job site or something would probably do that anyway. I know there's other ones that have built-in wheels to them. They haven't done it with this, so that's why you get the dolly. So thank you so much for watching my video here on the Bluetti Apex 300.